you as a sales rep, as a closer, needs to go in there knowing they're probably not interested, they're probably not waiting for me. It's my job to get my foot in the door and start moving this thing forward, regardless if it was a good or bad set. And I think there's a lot of prima donna closers out there that are like, well, the thing, they didn't tee it up where the spouse was there perfectly at the right time. And it's like, dude, that's life. Like, I don't know.
But it's also that, like, a lot of our closers that don't set appointments, that don't even self-gen, it's just their lead takers. Like, I'll always bring up, like, there's times where a closer will show up today to an appointment at, let's say, 3 o'clock, and then it's not a perfect time, but then they reschedule it for tomorrow at 3 o'clock. And they're the ones that are able to reset the expectations and go back. And then they get no-showed that time. It's like, dude, that's literally what a setter does all freaking day long. You talk to them for 15 minutes.
And still
you could have reset up any expectation you wanted to, and then you show up the next day and there's still no showing. It's like, that's exactly what they do on a day-to-day basis. So you can't get mad.
Yeah. What's up, everybody? Sam Taggart here with the DDD podcast, and I have a very special guest today. And when I say that on every effing podcast, let's be real, but this one comes home because, one, I recruited him into this industry
years ago, dude.
Years ago. Anyway.
BYU Idaho student. You slept on my couch, dude.
Oh, I
You
forgot
came to
about
Rexburg
that.
and you're like, if you're not going to sell with me, just recruit for me. Set me up appointments and I'll go meet with guys and I'll recruit them.
I forgot about that. You were going, so this is Brandon Thornton, by the way. He's done his best year, 150 accounts in solar, running a big team out in Portland, Oregon, and Utah, and does about 200 to 400 solar deals a month under his downline. He's just a beast, and I could go on and on because, one, he worked with me for a year and a half, 2 years.
2 years.
2 years, and he was my number one guy at Solcius. Like, he was my top rep, top manager, just got it done, and now he's on my podcast. Like, this is so crazy because I remember I'm going up to Idaho trying to recruit him. I tried to recruit you for like 3 years, dude. Like,
my semesters were all screwed up and I didn't believe in it. He
was like, I'm not doing door-to-door sales, because you were going into medical school, weren't you?
No, I was coming to Utah to do my finance master's.
Masters, that's what it was. You're like, oh, I'm gonna be doing my master's.
No, I hit you up. I was like, when was it? I was like, shit, I gotta pay a lot of money, for my master's degree. And I was like, I don't have the money. What's Sam up to nowadays? Like, I know he's doing, solar. He wasn't doing alarms at the time. So I was like, let me text him real quick. He's working with another company. And then he's like, dude, just come try it out for a month. So ended up crashing in some mission buddy's house up in like Kaysville area, just by myself. It was just me, and went and set appointments for the first month and made like 12, 14 grand. I'm like, so I ended up, what I did is 2 weeks into it, I had to pay my tuition. It was like 52 grand. And then just picked up my University of Utah football season tickets. And I'm like, screw it, just picked those up. And then I withdrew from all my classes and never took a class again. But I still got to go to all the games.
Yeah, you
like the first game I went scanned it. I'm like, I'm a dropout. Are they going to find that out? But no, went to all the games.
I was like, I don't mean to say this, but I dropped out. I mean, you just made how much in 2 weeks?
Exactly. I was like, nope, done deal.
So Brandon goes, so this is crazy. And some of you guys might be able to relate to this. So he was a setter for a while, and I took him under my wing. I was like, let's go knock, do it this way, and he crushed.
Yeah, I was a setter for a while.
And he was like, I can't close. He's like, I don't think I could do what the closers could do. Like, I mean, talk me through that, because I think a lot of people that are listening to this, they're, a week in, 6 weeks into setting, and they're kind of, am I good enough? And you were one of the top setters and doing really well. What was going through your head as a setter when you watched kind of everybody's like, why don't you close? And he's like, dude, I don't know. Like,
dude, I was happy. I was comfortable. I just liked it. Like, I like knocking doors. So it's not like a lot of the closers are always like, oh, I just want to be done knocking doors and just take appointments 24/7. I enjoyed knocking. I was making good money, and I didn't have to do all the follow-up. Like, I just knew how much follow-up went into it, and so I was like, okay, I'm just setting. But then, I don't know, I'd set for almost a year, I think.
Yeah, it was a long time.
More. And so then it kind of just naturally happened. Like, I was glad that I did it the way that I did. I didn't force closing. I didn't force anything. And then it just kind of happened that I think we cut all setters, right? We were just all closers.
There was a day. No, this is what happened. So a lot of people don't know the
I was
story.
like, shit, I don't even have a job anymore.
I remember, so I was so sick of the Brandons of the world that were so good, and I knew they would freaking crush in closing. And I had a bunch of closers, and a lot of the solar guys can relate to this, where the closer's like, yeah, as long as you spoon feed me a nice appointment, I'll go to it. And then other than that, I will not work the rest of the week. And they'd work for like 4 hours a week, go to their 4 appointments, and then bitch about, well, how come you get Brandon sets? And how come this guy, oh, you're giving me only 3 sets, you give him 7 sets.
Story of my life.
So much bitching. And I was like, I'm number 2 sales rep. Brandon was better than me. Brandon was selling more. I was VP of sales, and hence I had a lot of other shit I was doing. But like, he's over here. And I'm like, I'm knocking my own deals. Like, I didn't even go to the sets. Like, I was just like, I just self-gen, guys. Like, it's even easier. And I remember there was a vivid point where I was just so emotional. I was like, F this. And I called Kelly. I was like, and the owners of the company, I was like, hey, I'm going to get rid of the setter program.
It's just done.
And they were like, what? I was like, okay, fine. I'll give him 2 weeks. He's like, yeah, that's probably a better approach. But like, you're sure about this? We had like 100 sales guys. And I said, in 2 weeks, if you're a setter and you can't figure out how to close, no home for you. If you're a closer,
everyone's like looking,
and
like,
you can't self-gen, no home for you. And we lost. I mean,
a
lot of guys. That was.
I really don't think the volume went down though.
No, we stayed.
Yeah.
Hence, I remember it was literally. I'm like, wow, we didn't even lose production.
The volume probably went up.
It was the same the next month. I vividly remember this because I trained on this principle. The same the next month because I was crapping bricks. I was like, I had good friends.
I was too.
I had good friends that left and were like, you're stealing from my livelihood, Sam. You're a Satan. Like, I do not agree with this. And I was like, okay, go find a home where they're gonna spoon feed you. I'm just done with this culture. And freaking, we did the same volume the next month and started growing after that. And I was like, see, touche.
I'd probably be a setter to this day if you didn't do that.
No, but there's something to be said. I want to say this. I think too many people think the end goal is to how fast can I become a closer, but I think they don't sit in the setter role long enough.
Oh, dude. It happens so often. Like we have people that just in the industry that I worked with at the company that I'm at, just that they don't even have sales experience and they will think setting is below them and go straight to closing, and then they're with us for a month and then they're done. They haven't made a paycheck. I think that's like my little brother. He's done this now for 2-3 years and he's a setter still to this day. Like, he'd be a great closer, but he just, wants to do he wants to lead setters and train them. But it's like, we have so many closers that just have no business closing, and we have some setters that also don't have business, setting, that they should take it to the next level and go close. But I mean, with me, honestly, it just happened. You called it, said everyone has to close, and then it ended up it was like an aha moment, because what I did is, I don't even remember why, but I was kind of like, I was more of like scarcity mindset. I was like, shoot, like, what am I gonna do? Am I gonna just go knock and close? And then there for the first few weeks, I was like, dude, I remember these lay down sets that I had that never closed.
Yeah.
With a closer, and I was like, I just sat down and just like made this list of people that I was like, dude, I remember them. I made a list and I just went to all of them. And it was like, hey, I talked with you a couple months ago, why didn't you do it? And it was always just like, the closer never followed up with me, or, your rep never followed up with me. They never called me back. They never sent me the documents. And I was like, okay, well, let's do it right now. And then just closed it. It was like just such easy stuff that people were dropping the ball on. And then it was like, dude, how are you closing so many? Like, the first week I closed like 7 deals or 8 deals, and people were like, what the heck? I was like, well, those were my deals that I set 6-8 months ago, sent them to closers, never happened, and I just went and closed them. It wasn't that hard.
It's something to be said there, because if you've set for a year and you've set your own perfectly teed up appointments and then never saw it get appreciated like you would have appreciated it, because you went through blood, sweat, and tears to get that one that day. You're like, dude, I worked till 8 o'clock and finally got somebody that was like, yeah, and then you didn't even show up on time. You didn't follow up as a closer, and you didn't like treat it like my 8 hours of knocking treated that set.
Well, I remember like when I first started, that first month, there was like some holiday, and I had no idea what the holiday was. Like Pioneer Day in Utah. Was that a thing? Yeah. In like the summer. I'm just like knocking away. Everyone's like, why are you even working? I'm like, what do you mean? It's a Saturday, hotter than hell here in Utah. And I was like, what do you mean? It's not a holiday. I come from Oregon. Like, this isn't a normal holiday. It was like just some Utah thing. And then I, knocked and set probably 15 or 18 deals, and then I just really never got follow-up with closers. And I was like, dude, like, how long am I gonna actually do this? But luckily the money just kept coming in and just naturally turned into a closer and made it happen from there.
So 50%, I remember we were at about 60 to 50% no-show rate set to close. You guys run a setter-closer model at Ion right now.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that that's still accurate, or what's your show ratio on a set to close? Like, setter sets an appointment, closer goes and shows. I'm curious, like, what it is today.
Like
how many show that first appointment?
I would say we're like 55-60%.
Okay, so same numbers.
Mm-hmm.
He says it's pretty good. I'm like, those are the same numbers we had at Solstice.
Yeah.
So it's like pretty industry standard, I found. What do you find is helping the closers treat, knowing what you went through, have you done anything with the closers today to help them appreciate the setters, or to help them manage that 50% no-show? Or like, what are you doing now that's like optimizing that, or like culture around don't be little shits to where you're gonna be like me, where if one day you're like, epic, your close your own deals or nothing?
Dude, it's hard because it's like a lot of the closers that we do have kind of just stumbled upon the job, and where we set a lot of appointments. So it was like some of these closers have never even done door-to-door sales in their lives. They just stumbled upon it. Or like we had a dude he used to be a cop in Oregon, and then his brother works for us in Texas, and then he's a twin of the brother in Texas, and he's a manager out in Texas, and he's like, hey, my brother's a cop, he hates his life, like, can he sell for you guys? And of course we always try and hook him up to be a setter, but he wasn't going to be a good setter, but he ended up turning into a good closer. But it's hard because it's like they don't even know what it is, the daily grind that these setters are doing when it's raining every single day in Oregon, or right now it's super hot, it's like 90 degrees. So it's like we just have to tell them and like show them and like have them go knock with them every once in a while and just see kind of what it is on a day-to-day basis. That yes, some leads are shit, obviously, like it's part of our day-to-day thing, that some of these closers have 6-7 appointments on their calendar every single day. And of course they're also grinding because they're in their cars 24/7. It's like their office for the whole entire day. And if they're getting no-showed 3 or 4 times but only having the opportunities of 2 or 3 sit downs, they have to take advantage of it. But it's like, it's not hard because I see their paychecks and they're doing well. So, but the setters are too. Setters are happy. For us, it's just been like we have always had it 2 separate teams, the setter and closers, but we've also been able to kind of like merge that gap where it's like just full on open communication between setters and closers. That it's like I would love for a setter to call out a closer, and a closer to call out a setter if they see something that's not correct. Like,
that's so important.
Just setting up just stupid expectations, or if a setter hears back from a customer that they showed up 15-20 minutes late, it's like, you just call them out. Like, it's not my job, you call out the closer.
Is there elements where you've had to have kind of penalty, or how do you manage closers when they're not
I'll take them
it?
off. I'll take them right off. Oh yeah, 100% easy. Just because we hear, we've had a few that like, they're like, oh no, I showed up. It's like, well, let me call the customer. And I have an 801 number. We're in Oregon, so it's like, that's not a normal number. And it's like, hey, I'll just do a quality check. I'm like, hey, I'm the manager, did so-and-so show up? And he's like, no, dude, we've been waiting this whole time. Like, I have a Ring doorbell. I haven't had a call from anybody in the last 2 hours. And it's like, you're done.
I'm calling out closers right now. I guarantee you there's 1 or 2 or 50 of you guys listening to this right now that's you. And if your boss doesn't catch you, that shouldn't be like, oh, well, they don't even know. And I'm like, shame on you.
Yeah.
Or if they, if there's an element of like any disrespect or lack of courtesy to the setter, I want to call you out, because it's like, I will put you right on the streets. I will take you off leads. Like, literally go fend for yourself at that point. Like, my respect to the closers that don't take all those appointments serious. Oh, I don't want to drive 30 minutes. And what if it's a no-show? Probably is a no-show. I just shouldn't go.
I know we have a feature on our app that we have, and it says like how long ago that appointment was set. It'll say like 7 days ago, 8 days ago. And then closers will be like, they'll text me like, hey Brandon, like, should I call and confirm that deal? I'm like, absolutely not. Like, if there's usage, if there's an appointment, if there's a phone number, you're just showing up to it. And if you don't want to, like, they'll be like, can I just call and confirm? I'm like, no, it's okay. Like, they'll ask me that and I'll just send it to another closer. You're like, here, like, no, you don't appreciate that appointment. I'll send it to somebody that might not be the best closer, but they're gonna show up and at least sit it, because our setters make money on sits, but then obviously make money on closes. And it's like, a lot of people kind of bank on their weekly paycheck just being that sit pay as well. So it's like, you go fight for that. Like, if you call, text, whatever, of course they're gonna cancel. Like, of course it's not a perfect time to sit down for an hour and a half to close on a $30,000 to $40,000 loan. But if you show up and you're the salesperson that you are, you're at least gonna force a 15 to 20 minute conversation to at least reward that
interest and reward the setter for doing their job. I think that's a piece that people, I think you said something important. No one is really intentionally being like, yeah, I'm so excited for an hour meeting with this random sales dude in my house for a $40,000 loan.
There's very, very little laydowns anymore.
No, it's like, fine, yeah, I'll meet with the guy, and then you're like, I didn't mean to really set the appointment. Yeah, and it's like, you as a sales rep, as a closer, needs to go in there knowing they're probably not interested, they're probably not waiting for me. It's my job to get my foot in the door and start moving this thing forward, regardless if it was a good or bad set. And I think there's a lot of prima donna closers out there that are like, well, the thing, they didn't tee it up where the spouse was there perfectly at the right time. And it's like, dude, that's life. Like, I don't know.
But it's also that, like, a lot of our closers that don't set appointments, that don't even self-gen, it's just their lead takers. Like, I'll always bring up, like, there's times where a closer will show up today to an appointment at, let's say, 3 o'clock, and then it's not a perfect time, but then they reschedule it for tomorrow at 3 o'clock. And they're the ones that are able to reset the expectations and go back. And then they get no-showed that time. It's like, dude, that's literally what a setter does all freaking day long. You talk to them for 15 minutes.
And still
you could have reset up any expectation you wanted to, and then you show up the next day and there's still no showing. It's like, that's exactly what they do on a day-to-day basis. So you can't get mad.
Yeah.
Or if you go, like, I set deals all the time and go back to it, or I'll send a closer to it and be like, that's for sure gonna sit, that's for sure gonna close, and they're not even there. They just completely forgot about it. But
so I want to shift gears a little bit, because I think that we weren't planning on this podcast, and Brandon was just coming to hang today, and I was like, hey, let's do a podcast. And one of the things that I've realized, me internally, and Brandon and I have had a lot of off-camera conversations around this, is the balance between, is all this money, making $500,000 to $1 million a year, really worth it sometimes? He's like, I'm spending 15 hours of screen time on my phone per day, where I'm having to disseminate appointments and babysit this and assign area to this and follow up with this, and customers are calling me every 30 seconds. He just got off the call just barely with a customer. Like, I'm thinking about this, and he goes, Sam, like, I don't know how much longer I could do this. Like, So at what point, talk to me about that. Like, what's going through your head now? And to anybody that's listening, they might be feeling that same thing. I've been there. Like,
dude, it's tough. I mean, it's a balancing act every single day. It's like, I mean, obviously, the biggest, I guess, the reason why I'm where I'm at, and the success I've had in door to door is, one, I'm obsessed. Two, I'm competitive as hell, so I'm never gonna lose. I'm never gonna, let my team lose to. I mean, when we started in Oregon, we literally started from the ground up. We've never installed in Oregon. It was one of the craziest, markets that we've ever dealt with. And we went from doing 40 deals, 70 deals, then just straight up to, 1 month we did 400. Like, our first year we did 400. So it's like, I'm obsessed with it. But yeah, when I look at it, it's like, it's a balancing act 24/7. I get a notification every single Sunday, hey, your screen time's even higher than last week, and it's like 14, 15, 16 hours. It's like, damn, really, I just live, on my phone 24/7, and it's like, is the money worth it? One, I've had enough years in solar that I've made, really good money, that it's like, if the IRS slaps me with an audit, I can pay it cash and not have to worry about it. But in all reality, it's a learning curve, and that's why I come to you every 6 months. Typical Brandon check-in. Let's talk him off the ledge. What the hell do I
do? So let's do that. We're doing this live intervention right now. So if you're listening to this, it's not like this is scripted. Like, this is me.
The third hour of the day.
This is the third hour. Yeah, this is the third hour. So at what point? And I'm curious. Does one find peace in not being top office, not being top rep, not being and scaling things back maybe to make 500 instead of 900,000 or 300,000? It's like, we talk about like, I'm just gonna go sell. Like sometimes it's exhausting. Or like, if I just sold 20 a month, which I could do in my sleep, like I'd make, no headaches, no phone calls at 9 o'clock at night, dude.
Just me, yeah.
Just you. Like,
yeah.
That gets tempting. Or at what point is it like, I mean, to hire more people? Like, I guess kind of obviously you're at a tipping point. So like, what do you feel a rep can do or a manager can do if they're feeling this like out of balance, too obsessed, and I'm not being able to live my life, spend the money that I'm making, and my relationships are suffering, XYZ is suffering, spirituality is suffering, like everything, right?
Well, I mean, honestly, like the biggest thing for me has been obviously one, having you in my corner to even talk about things, because it's like the perspective is never, you're never able to put it into perspective because it's one, your daily life and you don't hear from other people. Two, I mean, I think about these things more and more the more I kind of, have these relationships. Like, I mean, I'm in Jimmy Rex's, coaching thing. We are the they, and honestly, it's like, I haven't really asked myself these questions in depth in the past. It was like, dude, I hate not winning. That was always my conversation with you, of like, how do you not obsess about numbers? Because I just want to win all the time. But now it's like, I don't care really about winning, but does, the 700-800 grand that I make a year even worth it? So it's like, I think it's just finding and aligning and finding a purpose and what I want to do, and then also realizing that all of the relationships and all the things are actually like screwed in my life, and just realigning and figuring out what the next thing for me is. So
yeah, and sometimes it's a transition of environment, sometimes a transition of vehicle, and sometimes it's just a realignment in environment and vehicle.
Yep.
And I think too often people don't sit with it long enough, and then too often people are scared to do something about it once they've sat with it long enough.
Yep.
To be like, it's going to hurt this person, hurt this person, hurt this person. So we were talking about the insecurities. One of my mantras is like, you have how many reps?
I don't know, probably 50, 60 in Oregon, like 20 in Utah.
So call it 70, 80 guys. And, your brother and reps that you built relationships with. I mean, heck, Dan sold with you for years.
Yep.
Where you'd almost feel like you're abandoning. You're like, if I were to leave or change vehicle, I'd be abandoning this. And, I look at this in my marriage, and I was just like, man, like, what if she isn't okay and can't find happiness, and like I'm hurting her family, and we spent years together, like, and to leave and change my vehicle essentially was like devastating. And I had to get to the point where I was like, am I not living my life to its abundance, to its fulfillment, due to the insecurity of me projecting like, what if they're not happy, or what if it screws them?
Instead of you.
Yeah, instead of me.
Yeah.
And is it selfish? I guess the question would be, is that selfish to think that way?
Kind of have to be selfish. Unapologetically selfish.
Yeah. I think it's selfish sometimes to project the fact that you think you're that important to them.
True.
It's like, at the end of the day,
without me?
Yeah, what are they gonna do without me? It's
like I'm not that important to them.
At the end of the day, what if you change the lens to what if, and it sounds sad in a
what
marriage.
Would I do without them?
Yeah.
But I also think too, though, is part of the issue, especially in the door-to-door solar industry, that's all I've ever dealt with, is like, I feel like a lot of reps or even managers that feel like they're not happy, they just are very quick to jump to the 100%. Next thing. Like I always tell that to a lot of the reps that I've worked with, or people that I've like worked in the industry with. Like I've seen people, that have done alarms, and they were with like 6 different alarm companies, and they're just a few years that they did alarms, and then they're in solar, and now they're like been in solar for 3 years and 6 companies deep. And it's like, they're just, they're always thinking that the grass is always greener on the other side, and then they're just like, crap, what did I just give up? So it's like,
what's my response? Every time Brandon calls me, I have the same response.
And with what?
Like, oh, what if, this company's offering this per kilowatt and this, and I'm like,
Oh, I mean, you just laugh.
It's the same thing. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's samesies.
Yeah,
I was like,
always.
and I was like, just stay where you're at. And it's always, so you're just going to move from one prison to another prison. It's not going to be any different. Yeah, they could pay you more, great. But that's not what you're trying to solve right now. You're already making, you don't need more money. If people continue to try to fix their problem with a bigger pay scale or a better manager or a better this, and I'm like, guys, that doesn't solve your internal problem that you're trying to solve for.
Well, I think the thing is, not that I, will solve everything within my life, because obviously, more, issues or conflicts come up in my own personal life, but like, I feel like every single time I come and talk to you or to Jimmy or whoever it may be, it's instead of just going, to the next prison or to jump to another company that wants to give me $100,000 sign-on bonus or whatever it is, it's like, there's a lot of shit that we have to just deal with and change in our own life on a day-to-day basis, and just grow where you're at. Like, obviously talking just on this podcast, I'm like, little light bulbs in my head of like, I gotta figure out this thing in my life, but where I'm standing is a good place to be.
Yeah.
But
here's the thing, like, I've done a lot of study around like workaholicism, right? Because like Katie would always accuse me of like, oh, you're just obsessed with work. And it's like, yeah, there probably was some element of workaholicism. Like I use it as an escape from hell.
I'm single.
Yeah, hell in the marriage. So exactly. It's like either get ripped apart in coming home or stay working and get accolades and love and reward, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so you get addicted to that winning or the chase or the success. And I've had to do a lot of internal work to like decompress that. And it's like, whether I'm in this vehicle of selling solar or this vehicle of selling whatever, like the symptom of me going and being obsessed is always going to be there. Yeah. Like I was obsessed with guitar, I was obsessed with boondoggle, I was obsessed with snowboarding, I was obsessed with whatever it was. Sam was like, I'm gonna be good at this.
Painting addresses on the
curbs. I was like, damn, I'm gonna be so good at this. I killed it, right? Like my mantra is like, I'm gonna be good at whatever I do. And so it's a practice of slowing down. It's taking tension and wake, like awareness to be like, oh, whoa. It's like any drug. It's like, oh, I cannot drink this week because I'm noticing it's having control over me. And oftentimes we don't like to associate work to that. But
and
it's
that's
like,
hard with the industry though too, is like, it's all number based, it's all performance based, it's all
dopamine driven, ego driven. Where you at, dude? It's like, oh, fetch, yeah, where am I at? And you base your worth based on, even how we start the podcast. If I went and said Brandon did 400 solar deals in a month with his team, or 150 personal deals in a year, like, you don't listen. And so his worth is built. Yeah. Oh, well, who's this? If I just sort of said, a good friend, Brandon Thornton, comes on the podcast.
Doesn't even knock doors.
Doesn't knock doors. We're going to talk about internal traumas of workaholism and how do I go through these crises of like imbalance. And it's like, well, here's the issue. Like, we're so attached to this need. Like, I talked to James Lawrence, Iron Cowboy, right? And we were talking about like, what's next? He just did 101 Ironman in 101 days. And he's like, dude, there's this like external pressure that I gotta somehow maintain that type of physical performance or endurance shape.
Yep.
How do you expect me to be in that good a shape all the time?
Well, he was on the our coaching call the week right before you were on it, and he was talking about like his life being a living hell right after he finished those. Not his physical shape or anything, just he felt important during those 100 days or 101 days and all this support, and then all of a sudden everyone kind of just like,
okay,
yeah,
here's the one,
like, you're cool, but also we're not following you on a day-to-day basis. And that's kind of how we are with like sales. It's like, I'm the top rep at the month or the year, and then all of a sudden you realign and want to have a different agenda, and then all of a sudden you're like,
nobody ever cares.
Yep.
So this is my big 2 cents. Ready? Big nugget of the day. Listen to this podcast. The second you detach from whether I'm number 1 rep in the company or number 500th, at the end of the day, most leaders and most managers above you only care about you if you are making money for them. It's so sad, yet so true. And I hate to say it. So now the challenge is, let's say you leave. How realistic are you going to be still good friends with them? How often are they calling you? How often are you getting checked in? How often do you care to call them? So the reality is it selfish to do you? No. Like at the end of the day, the second your relevancy is so attached to ego, and so you're losing yourself over a false expectation of love, because that's where you have this void. You need accolade, you need this recognition, you need this. Instead of detaching away from that and coming from a place of power where it's like, I don't need all that, I just do it because I'm freaking badass. But if I didn't do it, it doesn't change how I feel inside. And that right there, finding the association between those two and finding awareness and detaching from that is where you can start to really find fulfillment and achievement within this industry. Because it's like,
I think a lot of the time is nobody even detaches from that to even look at it from a higher view.
No, they don't until they're out of it.
Not even just that whole general concept, but also just their day-to-day life, their relationships, their, workaholism or whatever you call it. It's like, you don't know it because you're literally grinding 24/7. You eat, sleep, just knocking doors and selling, and then all of a sudden you're like, shit, what am I actually doing? Like, it happens to me. That's why I hit you up every 6 months.
It's, what car do you drive? Why is that important?
Right.
Oh, and I have this nice house. It's like, why is that important? It's like just detaching from it was so fun getting my Instagram stolen and starting over. Because like my identity started to get shifted towards, oh, I'm this Instagram guy. And I was like, it was so fun to just get humbled and be like, nobody effing cares.
Yeah.
Because then you're like, how many people
it's cool, but
actually,
it's cool.
It's not like,
yeah.
Like, am I cool they follow me, but do they really even care? Like, who are my real friends?
Right.
Like, who actually is going to reach out, whether I had a big Instagram following?
Who's going to follow, or who's going
to follow the new page? Who's going to
follow the new one?
Exactly. Yeah. I'm like, that was a cool test. Like, who's going to, hey, I haven't seen Sam in a while. Like, where's he at? Versus, I don't even think about him, out of sight, out of mind, not relevant anymore. And that was a really cool feeling to go through. And I actually weathered it. I was like, I just got it back, guys, so I have my normal Instagram back. This Turkish terrorist
straight
just
stole it.
Dude,
how much are you end up spending on that?
$800, but I'm still in the battle. He's
worth it. But...
Yeah, I was like, oh. But he didn't give it back for the $800.
Oh.
He was like, needed more money. He's like, I got a test tomorrow. Can you give me $100? Like, disappeared for a month, just pops up.
How do you send him money?
Bitcoin. He's like, can you send me another $100? I was like, you mother effer, you took $800 from me. Like, why would I send you another $100? He's like, trust me, this time I'll do it for real, bro. Like, how about trust me? Open the account and I'll pay you.
So he could just take it right back?
I don't know. We'll see. So, while it's there, it's there. Anyway, long story short, I got it back for the time being, and it was so interesting. I don't know where my thought was, but I noticed myself happy regardless, and that was a good test and a good check-in, like a litmus test to be like, wow, Sam, you've done a lot of internal work to not really care. Like, some people be going berserk, and I was just like, reset, like how fun. And the people that did follow started to follow the new one. I was like, hey, this is me, cool, you found me. The people that are meant to follow and like me and be in my life are meant to be in my life and follow me. The people that aren't. Like, I'm okay with that. If I'm supposed to be here for 6 years, if you're supposed to be selling solar for another 10 years, you're supposed to be selling solar for another 10 years. It's like, what do you want to design? And my whole design was not to have 1 million followers on Instagram. Like, I could care less. I'm like, I want to create true impact on people's lives. And that was what made me happy. And I was like, whether it's 5 people or 1 million people, I don't care.
But I think that's also the high level thing that I talking to you about is most people would freak out when they get a Instagram stolen from them that has hundreds of thousands of followers, and you were just like, oh, that sucks. Sucks for a minute, and then it's like, okay, whatever. I'll start another one and then see where it goes.
Let's
restart, refresh, and just be cool with it. Most people would freak out, so it's another high level, look at it from a different lens instead of reacting so negatively and then just snowballing.
Let's say your company goes out of business today, and you're like, okay, I got to reevaluate. And let's say you took a 6-month hiatus. How many people do you think would come to you and be like, what are you doing with your life? How many people would be like, what the freak? You just do nothing?
My family, for sure.
Oh,
they'd be
sure.
like, how do you have the money to do all that?
So they'd say, how do you have the money? You're like, well, I have money. And then I think a lot of people would project well, and how many people would try to recruit you? How many people would try to say, hey, come do this and do this? So be like, no, I'm doing exactly what I want to do, which is nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
And would you feel okay doing that? Or would you start to apologize and we start to justify and you're like, well, I'm still working on it.
I'd feel okay to do nothing for a little bit, but then I think after, let's say I'd set it for a 6-month hiatus, I wouldn't make it. Just because I can't not do nothing for that long.
I would struggle. But I'm just saying, that's the point. But internally something would spark it. It's not externally. And this is the question. It's like, how often does external people, because they're like, how are you living this way? Like, oh yeah, how am I living this way? You start to buy into their insecurity, their belief, and their story versus, I don't know, God said just to sit for a minute and just relax. I'm relaxing. Let life go by for a minute. It's like
decompress.
And that happens on a micro level all the time. Like, how we feel bad about how we're running our day, or we're sleeping in one day and you're like, how'd you sleep in? I don't know, my body told me to sleep in longer. I needed some extra sleep.
Right.
Kill me, dude. I just think so often we don't give ourselves permission to check in with us, and we're getting attached to somebody else and what they want.
And what they care about.
Yeah, what they care about.
I know we had a setter, he texted me the other day, and he's one of my little brother's friends, and he's just like apologizing for not producing for the team. And I'm like, dude, who cares about the team? We're doing fine regardless of, but it's like, do it for you, do it for your family, do it for a different purpose than, sorry, I'm not performing for the team. I was like, we're on pace to do 300 accounts this month. We're okay. But if you want to throw in some more accounts, go ahead, for you, because you're a young kid and this should be a life-changing job and life-changing money that you should be making if you were doing it for a different reason.
Love that.
So
and that's a good answer. And it's like, the team can be a good temporary motivator in a lot of ways, but it's like, what's the root? It's like, dude, why you should are you feeling out of alignment? That's a good wake-up call for you to then perform for you. But you're doing you. I love that.
Yeah, don't do it for the team.
Okay, so let's say you give a piece of advice for that. You're you in college, and you get a Sam that calls you, and you're now 2 weeks in, you're seeing some success. What advice would you give that version of Brandon, knowing what you know now today?
Damn.
You're talking to that 2 week in Brandon.
2-week-old setter.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think the biggest thing would be, just like we were talking about, is don't work for other people. Just like the setter did, is I didn't care if it was holidays. Everyone wanted to take off holidays. I didn't want to take off holidays. I think just the work ethic has kind of set me apart, and I'll always look at it I've kind of done it. Well, I mean, obviously I could have done it a different way. It could have been in a different, scenario, but I did it the right way and created success for myself instead of, dealing with other people that were trying to stop me from succeeding. But I also think that for me, I think the biggest thing that I would have changed would have to get not just you as a mentor, because obviously I was blessed that you were the one that brought me onto it, but also having mentors within and close to me throughout the whole entire time, because I feel like I'm doing good sometimes, but when you have a mentor that's literally telling you what you're capable of, you're leveling up every single day, every week, every month, where a lot of people just look at their numbers and oh, dope, I just made 20-30 grand this month, I'm good. But they could literally be doing triple the volume, or they could be managing or recruiting more people and blessing the lives of other people, because it's the exact same thing. You brought me on and you were constant with recruiting, dude, come sell Vivint alarms.
Took me 3-4 years to recruit this guy. We literally served our missions in Argentina.
I did not want to do that. I didn't want to do alarms, and then boom, solar was the thing that I was okay, I could get behind that. And then all of a sudden, 6 figures the first year, and it was after that it was life changing. So it's go recruit and go help other people from day one, and be the Sams to
other people,
hundreds of people.
Yeah, no, you've been a fun success story. You know what I mean? I always look at people, I'm like, man, if I wouldn't have hounded Brandon as much as I did, maybe he would have fallen in it at some point. But think of all the lives you could change by recruiting. you know, I just think back to like all the different guys that are still in this that I've trained, I've recruited. I mean, there's a lot of people I could bring on this podcast that I'm like, I brought you into this industry, like, let's go, you know what I mean? Like from day one. And, you know, and I think it's fun, especially the people that don't even know who that guy am. I'm like, guys, I've been in this a very long time. And a lot of people are like, does Sam even knock anymore? And I'm like, I don't much. I go knock with companies when they ask me to.
But it's still fun.
It's still fun. I love it. I'm a huge fan of it.
Like if we went and knocked here and you thought we'd go ham.
Guarantee you, I still got it in me. I just went out in Florida 2 weeks ago and turned heads. And they were just like, and I was like, still got my mojo. Can't take that away from me. But what I do think that I've made a bigger impact that I think is fun is watching Brandon go make, you know, upwards of close to $1 million. And I have texts from Brandon that were like, I thank you, like novel texts. Like those texts mean so much to me.
Yeah.
Where it's like, he sent novels like 2 years in, 3 years in saying, hey, I just made my first $500,000. Thank you so much for being persistent with me. And I pride myself in that. And, you know, that's where when you get to a point where you're like, cool, if I can help enough people make what they want to make and help them, you in turn are always taking care of. You all heard that quote. And, you know, like what he said, he's like, one thing I recognized in Brandon early, always supported him in, was it was like, there's not many people that outwork Brandon. And the problem is most people, they need a kick to the nuts to go work. Brandon needs a kick to the nuts to stop working. And that's like not a normal conversation that you have, but that's typically the conversation I have to have with Brandon. Most of us, 90%, it's the alternative. And you think you're working hard, you're probably not. And anyway, Brandon, like, I know I never had to question if he's working hard. I had to question if he's happy in life. And I'm like, dude, let's balance this.
No balance.
Yeah, so I appreciate you being on the show, man.
Thanks,
this
dude.
has been fun just to like share and
Yeah, we're gonna go to lunch. You're like, let's do a podcast and eat. Like, all right, done. There.
But hopefully you got some value out of this, guys. Again, like no amount of money, there's no amount of money that's worth your peace, in my opinion. Like you couldn't pay me enough now, knowing what I know now. And I've had to go through the crap too. I've had to break things and lose things and it costs a lot of money and kids and all sorts of stuff. Like to come to this place where I am now, to be like, oh wait, I know how to compartmentalize. And even like this morning, I had a 9:30 window and I got my workout in. And nobody's gonna get in the way of my meditation this morning. I had a call, I was like, hey, I'll run 10 minutes late because I'm not done with my meditation. Like, you know, for me, I prioritize the things that I know bring that peace, and I'm selfish with that. So
I think that's super cool, just because it's like the industry creates chaos and everyone's chaotic. We just go ham, balls to the wall 24/7 from the time we wake up to the time you go to bed. And it's like, you can only do that for so long. Like you obviously did it for years and, you know, Vivint and selling solar, but it's like, you're a completely different person today than even the VP Sam that worked with me
100%,
at Celsius.
100%. I hope to be. Okay, I love you guys. Hopefully this got some value. Share this, leave a comment. We love to hear your feedback and, you know, episodes and podcasts you guys want to see in the future.